Hello everyone, welcome back to Everything Swift. Today we'll be tackling Leetcode question 57 titled Insert Interval. We're given a nested array of integer here named intervals, and also the second parameter here that we're given, which is of an array of integer, and the output is basically the updated version of this nested intervals parameter here, right? Essentially the task here, whatever this question is asking us to do, is with this new interval parameter here, can we insert it within this intervals nested integer here? And if there's any overlapping, we are supposed to update the range and return that within the output. If it does not overlap, basically we'll just insert this new interval wherever appropriate within these given intervals that already exist inside the existing intervals array. So let's try and take a look at this example here. We are given the intervals of 1, 3, 6, 9. Basically 1 is the starting value and the ending value is 3. Same for the second array here, which is 6 and 9. 6 is starting, 9 is the ending. And it is always the case for this question where each array has two values, starting and ending. So in this example here, with these two intervals given here, we are also given this new interval, which is 2 and 5. And our job here is to try and fit 2 and 5 within this new interval. As we can see with this output here, the new range is basically 1 and 5, 6 and 9. So basically the overlapping happened with 2 and 5 and 1 and 3. And that's how we get 1 and 5 by taking the first value of this starting value of this array here and combining it with the ending value of this new interval, right? So we can see here 2 here, which is the starting value of the new interval, and 3, which is the ending value of this current interval, is actually within this particular range. So that's why it is updated as 1 and 5, because 2 and 3 is technically within this range. So 6 and 9 is not affected at all, because if you take a look at this new interval here, the starting value and the ending value is not anywhere within this range at all, right? So basically that's pretty much what we are supposed to do. The question is like how we're going to do it, right? So the strategy here is to actually take this new interval value and actually do a comparison with while iterating through this intervals list here. So what we're going to check is for sure is the first condition is we have to check whether the last value is actually bigger or smaller than the first value of that current iterated interval. In the event that this last interval here of the new interval is smaller than the starting of the intervals, the current iterated version of the interval, then we know for sure this entire new interval will be in front of these intervals. So let's try and visualize what's going on. So for example, if intervals is say, let's put a bigger value 4, 5 and probably 6, 10, and then the new interval is basically 1 and 2, right? So in this example here, we know that 2 is definitely smaller than 4. So in that sense, we know for sure that this entire new interval is always going to be in front. It cannot be in the way of like 4, 5 and 1, 2 and then 6, 6, 10. That does not make any sense, right? So we know for sure if the last value of the ending value of the new interval is smaller than the starting value of the current iterated intervals, we know for sure that the new interval will always come first. So in this scenario, what it will be is 1, 2 and 4, 5. So that's the first scenario, right? And then the second one is basically to compare whether the starting value of the new interval is bigger than the ending value of the current iterated version of the interval, right? So let's say, for example, for the purposes of demonstration, I'm just going to adjust the example and then say, for example, the new interval is 6 and 8. for example. So we take the starting value here and we check with the current iterated interval here, ending value. So is 5 bigger or smaller than 6? It is smaller than 6, right? So we know for sure that the new interval range is definitely never going to be before this current iterated interval. So with that being said, we know for sure that this new interval can come after it, right? So we can put it something like this, right? Yeah, so this is the second scenario. The third scenario is where we have an overlap, as we can see in this example 1 here, right? And that way, the way we need to do that is actually we need to keep track of which is the minimum, right, of these starting value and also the current iterated interval starting value. We'll get the minimum and also the maximum of the ending interval of the current iterated interval and also the ending value of the new interval. So I know it's a bit of a mouthful, but then just to summarize, there are three things that we have to keep in mind. And I think the code is much simpler than my explanation, but I just wanted to go through in terms of like what we are supposed to do here. So I'll just recap again while coding the solution now. So first thing first, I'm just going to have a answer parameter here, which we will return as our output. And then I'll just go ahead and return here. And then the first thing is I'm also going to hold a variable to this new interval here because we are going to change this new interval range whenever there's an overlapping scenario. So in this example here, the new interval is 2 and 5. The strategy here is that we're going to take this new interval and set it to the 1 and 5 in this example. So I'm just changing it as a variable because I can't manipulate it in Swift directly from this parameter here. So as I mentioned, we have to go through an iteration. So let's try and set that up. Intervals.count, right? So in this event, the first condition is what we want to check is the new interval final value smaller than the current interval's starting value, right? So in this event, we know for sure if the ending value, which is already bigger than the starting value, is smaller than the starting value of the current iterated iteration intervals, then we know for sure that new interval will always come before whatever is within this list of intervals. So what we can do here is actually just append new interval here, and then the cool thing is because we know for sure that the new interval, since it comes before the current intervals here, we know that we can just add everything within these intervals here because we already incorporated the new interval, right? So what we can do here is basically just append contents of array of intervals of the current index all the way to intervals.count, right? And then basically that's the answer for this scenario because we already incorporated the new interval inside the answer here. So basically, just to explain, this range here is essentially just taking whatever that's inside these intervals and just adding it into this answer variable here. So the second scenario is when the new interval starting point is actually bigger than the current interval's index, the ending value. So in this scenario, we know for sure that we want to add the current interval into the answer here because there's no overlapping and it comes before this new interval. So intervals of I, right? Then the last value, the last condition here, the third condition is basically when we have an overlapping range and we need to update it. So this is where we will update our variable here, and how we do that is actually get the minimum comparison. So the minimum of the current interval starting value as compared with the new interval starting value. Oh, sorry, this one does not have range, so just 0. And then the same thing with the maximum of the current interval's ending value and also the ending value of the new interval. Then what we're going to do is new interval, just update the range to become min val and max val. The reason why we don't just add this new interval into the answers array here, into this answer variable, is because we might find a bigger range and we need to continue expanding this range, right? So for example, in this output here, there's no further expanding once we update it to 1 and 5. So just to recap what's going on here. So in this scenario, we are comparing 1 and 2. 1 is smaller, so that's why we are using this range. The new intervals range is 1, but the ending value, we are comparing the max value, which is comparing 5 and 3. So in this event, 5 is bigger, so that's why we take the new interval's ending value, but the starting value is the current interval starting value, so hence 1 and 5. And then here, basically we just need to append the new interval. And that's pretty much all there is to this question. I think I didn't miss out any condition. So 3 scenarios here. Um, let's go ahead and run the code just to make sure I got it right. Looks good. Just run with more test cases. Looks good as well. Submit this. And there we have it. That is the solution for this question. So basically, just to recap, there are 3 scenarios here. We are going to check the new intervals ending value with the current interval starting value. If this is smaller, then that means we can confirm that this new interval is an interval that is smaller than the entire interval that exists within this intervals array. So we go ahead and append it, and then append the remaining intervals from this given parameter here. But if the new interval starting value is bigger than the current interval's ending value, then we know for sure that the current intervals is smaller than the new interval. So that's why we just add the current interval into our answer, and then we just continue the for loop. But in the scenario where we have an overlapping, what we want to do is actually determine the mean value and the max value. As we can see in this example here, we just compare 1 and 2, 3 and 5 as I explained earlier, and then we just update our new interval. And then once this for loop breaks out, we have to remember to just add the updated new interval. If there's any, if there's not, we just append it and then return the answer. So yeah, I know it's a bit of a mouthful. I know I said a lot of intervals within this question, but hopefully that's clear enough. Those are the 3 things that we need to check, and that is the solution for this question. So hopefully you guys find this video helpful. If you do, please feel free to share and subscribe to this channel, because I'm trying to grow this channel as well. So thank you very much. Take care and bye bye.